Hi everyone, and welcome to Garden to Kitchen. Today is about seeding tips for beginners. If you've been buying plants at the big box store or the nursery, and this year you'd like to elevate your gardening game and grow plants from seeds, vegetables or flowers, you've come to the right video. Each year people come into my garden, it's early in the season, and they say, how did you get your plants to be so big, so green, so stocky, so early? And I tell them, well, it's a step-by-step plan. And I'm going to share that plan with you today. So let's get started. Now, the first thing you want to do is get yourself some seed catalogs. I have some in front of me here. One that I'm just showing you here is called Johnny's, and that's in the United States. A beautiful catalog that shows all the different seeds, the vegetables and flowers that are available. And of course, you can order them online and have them delivered right to your home. So you can start planning in December, January, lots of time to look at the seeds that you're going to be growing for the following year. I also have another one from Stokes from Ontario. I have another one, West Coast Seeds from Western Canada, and of course Vessi Seeds in the East Coast of Canada, and there are many others in between, and of course many in the US and other countries around the world. So that's the very first thing you want to do if you're going to be growing from seed. Get yourself some good catalogs and start flipping through them in December, January, so that you can order them and watch for the free shipping, of course. Now, why am I saying that? Because the other day I was in a particular store and I was looking through the seeds, and one package of seeds said big red tomatoes. And what does that tell you in terms of reproducing that particular plant for next year and beyond? So I have some seeds here, just to give you an idea. I have a seed package of tomato Sun Gold F1 hybrid, and I know I can buy that every year. I have another one here that is the Detroit Dark Red Beets. And of course, that's a particular name. I can reproduce this every year. I have another one here of hybrid cucumber, Perzeus, and chocolate sprinkles, one of my favorite cherry tomatoes. So you get the idea. Now I know exactly the variety and the type of plant that I want, and that information is available through the catalog. So I strongly recommend that you get a series of catalogs. The second thing that you should consider is, when should you start the seeds? When should you put the seeds in the ground and get them to germinate? Well, normally the rule of thumb is 4 to 6 weeks before your final frost date. That's a general rule, but here in Zone 5A in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, to give you an idea, I plant my peppers, the green peppers that will eventually turn red. I plant them on St. Patrick's Day. That's March the 17th. I have some growing right now, actually, and then around April the 1st I plant all my tomatoes, and that's roughly 4 to 6 weeks before our last frost date. And that of course you'll have to adjust according to where you live, depending on whether if you live in a zone 4 or zone 3. Obviously you can start them later, or if you live in a warmer climate like zone 5 or zone 7, then you can start them earlier. So you'll have to adjust that. I also grow my cucumbers, and I start them May the 1st, and I start my cucumbers early, May the 1st, and I transplant them at the end of the month. So that gives you an idea about seeding times to get your plants to start growing. Now, the third thing you want to consider is the germination rate of the seeds that you're buying. On the back of the package, usually it indicates what percentage of seeds will germinate based on their optimal growing conditions at the seed company or the company that's producing the seed. And of course, under our conditions, they're probably not optimal. So in other words, they probably won't germinate at quite 80%, at least through my experience. So what you want to do is you want to seed more seeds, because the germination rate is not going to be 100%. Now, if you have something like a Jiffy 7 or a core pod, which is coconut fibers, you want to plant 2 or 3 seeds in each one of the pods, because what you're going to do is you're eventually going to cull out the weakest one. Now keep in mind that only 80% or less will germinate, so you want to plant extra seeds in each of the pods. And likewise, if you're growing seeds in another container like this one I have in front, you'll see that I have a multitude of plants growing here, and eventually I'm going to cull the plants to the strongest one. Now the next step is to plant more than you need. So as an example, when I first started off with these particular flowers, there's 6 here. Okay, so if I needed 6, I would probably plant about 8 plants, or 12 plants, 10 plants. You got to plant more than what you need, because as they continue to grow, there will be some plants that will be really vigorous and some plants that will be slower to grow. And that's what you want to do. You want to have more plants than what you need, and once again, you're going to remove some of the weaker plants. So don't be, afraid to give them away to your friends or whatever, but you're going to keep only the strongest plants that are growing. That's extremely important. So in terms of germinating, you want to use a large dome, ideally like this one here. This costs about $7 and it works extremely well. And what it does is it creates a lot of humidity in the growing area, and it creates a lot of germination. If you don't have that, you can use my barbecue chicken idea. Go to the supermarket and buy a barbecue chicken, and then wash it out and keep the lid. It's got holes that are pre-drilled in it, and of course this really works well. And if you don't have any of this and you just want to get started, try a piece of newsprint laying over top, and it'll create some moisture on the print, and it works as well too. I've tried that in previous years. So in addition to that, ideally it's best to create some heat. You're going to have a germination rate that's going to be better if you have a temperature around 75 degrees Fahrenheit or 24 degrees Celsius. That's under ideal conditions, and of course nothing's perfect, as you know. And of course what I do is I use a heating pad underneath. I've been wanting to buy one of those commercial ones, but I never got around to it. I've got 2 heating pads at home, and I tuck those underneath the plants, and that works really well. It creates a lot of heat. Now the growing temperature ideally should be around 65 degrees Fahrenheit or 18 degrees Celsius. Now that's the optimum conditions. It just controls the plant from growing too fast, especially if you have a warm house. And if you're growing in a basement, it's recommended that you have a fan and a dehumidifier to keep the air moving around and preventing the plants from damping off. And that has happened to me when I didn't use a fan or dehumidifier. So that's something to consider. In terms of growing under lights, I recommend 12 to 14 hours in growing under lights. Give them plenty of light. I use a timer, shuts it off, turns it on automatically. If you're growing in the house on a windowsill, leave it in the sun as much as possible, just checking the soil to ensure that it has plenty of moisture. And then of course we're going to transplant up to a large 6-inch pots, and I have one here. I've transplanted it up. What I did is I used a Miracle Grow product, and I filled the pot, and then I took the Jiffy 7 and I put it in and topped them up, and they look pretty good. They're ready to grow onto their next stage. That is crucial, because what's really important is you're really growing a root system. The root system is crucial to the plant taking off and growing well, and that's why I use a 6-inch pot. It's a quite a large one. And of course, you'll see here I have lots of plants. If I need 8 tomato plants of a certain variety, I'll maybe grow 12 of them, and if they all do well, I'll give some away or just toss some in the compost bin. But I keep the strongest ones. That is extremely important. Now, here's a great tip as you move along and you want to transplant them in the garden. I use something like this one over here. It's a Miracle Grow product called Quick Start, and it has NPK of 4, 12, and 4, and that number in the middle is high phosphorus, and that's what they need. I usually water the plants the day before, and when they hit the ground running, they do really well if you give them a good shot of phosphorus before you start to plant them. In addition to that, of course, don't rush the planting time. Normally I plant around the Victoria Day weekend in Canada, which is around the 21st-ish in May. I often try to beat that and move it up a little bit depending on the temperature, the growing conditions. But it's really important to watch the night time. It's important to have 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius at nighttime. If you have that, then you can go ahead and plant your plants, except for, of course, peppers that should be planted about 2 weeks after that, because the flowers will drop off. So I hope that gives you some ideas on how to seed your own vegetables and flowers for the very first time, and produce those big plants, these big stocky green plants that you're going to have in your garden nice and early. So hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you watch again. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that button on the bottom right hand corner, and don't forget to send this to your friends by your favorite social media. And if you like it, and of course comment please, and I'll respond to your comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.